What's up, everybody? It's Jaryn from Virtual Bike and Board, and this is a Cervelo Aspero GRX 600. What does all that mean? We are going to get into it. So, this is basically Cervelo's entry-level price point racy gravel bike meant for the kind of entry-level gravel enthusiast. Before we get into the bike, I want to back up and just give a little history of the brand. So Cervelo is a pretty cool company, started in 1993 by Gerard Froome and Chris White, I believe, in their basement of the engineering school at McGill University. And they were tinkerers, they were into aerodynamics and how things work, and they decided that the bike market was a great place to test their skills and come to market. First thing is we'll go into the name. Cervelo is Italian for brain, velo is French for bike. There's a bit of a mashup there is how they came up with the name for it, and it's kind of funny. Like, I always thought it was an Italian company. That is not true. Cervelo is a Canadian company that now has its headquarters in California, and they are now owned by Pon, which is a Dutch company that owns a lot of companies in the bicycle industry. So there's a little bit of a mashup there of different, nationalities and backgrounds and countries of origin. But at the end of the day, basically their marching orders is they want to make cool, smart, fast bikes for race-focused riders. Cervelo is generally on the higher price point, regardless of what category they're in, what spec they're in. There's a reason for that. They're a smaller company. They're focused on quality rather than quantity. They're putting a lot of time into research and development, whereas a lot of companies are just, printing out bikes, basically. The other thing that comes with quality over quantity is they don't have the economy of scales or the buying power as some of these other big companies, which also affects the cost of the bike a little bit. But what you get is a smaller, tighter focus bicycle made by a company that really has their focus on performance. So this bike right here, it's a full Shimano group set. Pretty cool thing about this is a GRX 600, which is like Shimano's middle of the road gravel lineup, is it comes with the full group set. So a lot of bike companies will put like a Shimano GRX 600 rear derailleur and front derailleur, and then they'll put like a no-name or a super entry-level cassette and a blank Shimano crankset to bring the price down. Because when a consumer comes into the bike shop, they go, oh, what kind of group set does that bike have? And they look at the rear derailleur. And if the rear derailleur says GRX 600, they assume the rest of the bike has that full spec, whereas it's oftentimes not the case. Whereas this particular bike is Shimano GRX 600 all the way around. So at $3,300, there's a lot of bang for your buck there. Yeah, really good looking, really clean bike at that price point. As you're looking through the Cervelo lineup, you'll notice that a lot of the bikes are like Aspero or Aspero 5, Caledonia 5. Where that comes from is basically the 5 series of bikes is really like Cervelo's pro tour quality bike. So their focus in the brand is the P5, the S5, and the R5, or that's always where the focus was. Those 5 bikes, again, those are your $10,000+ bikes. All of them have like the latest and greatest super lightweight carbon mock-ups and every little trick and gimmick you could throw at it. Those bikes are often spec'd with like the Electronic Ultegra, Dura Ace, or, SRAM Red group sets, whereas their non-5 lineup, like this is just a regular Aspero, generally have like 105 and Ultegra group sets or the SRAM Force group sets. So there's a few things in this Aspero bike where the Aspero versus the Aspero 5 that differ. So the Aspero, it's got a little bit of a beefier carbon layup, a little bit more durable and a little bit bulkier, I guess you could say. Really, it's just a little bit heavier. The other thing is the cables and the handlebars are external. The cables are internal through the frame, which is pretty standard these days, but the cockpit has external cables, whereas the Aspero 5 has all the cables internal through the handlebars, through the stem, and then right into the frame. Riders love it. It looks really nice. Mechanics absolutely hate it. The other thing about the Aspero versus the Aspero 5 is this bike has just a regular standard circular oval seat tube, whereas the higher end P5 or 5 bikes have a D-shaped seat post, which adds a little bit of stiffness and some aerodynamics into the overall aerodynamics of the bike. The nice thing about the circular seat post is it's generally got a little bit more flex to it, a little bit more comfortable. When I pulled this thing out of the box and I didn't really look at the label of the group set, I'm like, damn, what $10,000 bike just showed up? It's not every day you get a full, like, oil slick, high gloss bike at a $3,300 price point. Generally, the manufacturers leave like the really cool, really expensive paint jobs for like Aspero 5 is going to get this paint job. And then the Aspero is going to get like a flat black or, something a little bit more entry level on the price point. But this bike looks super clean. Everyone's going to be looking your way. The bikes don't have a lot of like added knickknacks and ding dongs and stuff like that on the bike. Like, they're clean. The one thing I'll say about this bike that is kind of funky is that this feels like it's backwards to me. The other thing about like clean lines is that a lot of bikes in the gravel category are made to like haul your stuff around, put your camping bag on the back, carry 3 water bottles instead of 2. Cervelo's motto is haul ass, not your cargo. So you can tell right where they want to be in the market. They claim to have kind of pioneered the race gravel sector of the market. And I'm not going to disagree with them there. Like, this is a bike that's meant for performance. Basically, it's meant to go and do races like Dirty Kanza or Rasputitsa, stuff like that, where like, yeah, there's like an overland category to it, but really the person who gets this bike wants to get their bike on some gravel roads and do it in a fast way. Another thing that's kind of fun to note about Cervelo bikes, and there's a little bit of it going on this bikes, is that they're not a manufacturer that makes everything. They don't make tires. They don't make their seats. Well, a little bit. They don't make all their stems and handlebars, and they don't make every little nook and cranny on the bike. And where that shines on this bike is Gravel Kings tires. So Gravel Kings, a lot of you probably know this, are my absolute most favorite tires. Why do I like them? They're light, they're cheap, they're fun, and it's cool to see a manufacturer spec their bikes with parts from other manufacturers. So a lot of the Cervelo bikes come with like Zeke saddles. This bike has an Easton handlebar and seat post setup. A lot of the Cervelo bikes are now getting spec'd with Santa Cruz wheel sets, which is kind of cool. So it's fun to buy like a complete bike from a manufacturer, but see some other parts on it from different companies. Just kind of keep it interesting. One other thing about the tires is that Cervelo is basically claiming that this bike fits a 700 by 40 or a 650B by 48 millimeter tire. One little caveat to think about is that if you're running the new Shimano group set, that front derailleur does cause a little bit of clearance issues with the tire, and they're saying that it maybe only runs like a 700 by 38, which in the grand scheme of things, if you're trying to go fast, is plenty. Okay, one other thing to note about this bike, and this will be a little bit of a rant, is the bike has a flip chip in the front. It is to kind of like, if you run a 650B rather than a 700 on this bike, it keeps your geometry the same. Some manufacturers put a flip chip on their bike and it says like, oh, you can have it in like trail or race mode. The only thing that I think is cool about a flip chip on a bicycle is that you can tell your friends that your bike has a flip chip on it. Besides that, I'm not interested. What is a flip chip? A flip chip is a chip that's in an oval and it has a hole drilled in it on one side. And if you pull it out and you flip it the other way and then put your axle or suspension bolt back through it, it changes the geometry of the bike. The one thing that's fun about a Cervelo, and I can say this because I'm riding one right now, is when you get on one, you feel a little pro. You know, there's something to be said about riding a bike that not everybody is riding. Although these days at the New York City race series, like everyone's riding Cervelos. So they're definitely not a no-name brand, but it still feels a little posh, which is kind of fun sometimes. That is a basic first takes of a Cervelo Aspero GRX 600. In my opinion, super good value, super good bang for your buck at $3,300 with a full Shimano GRX 600 group set. Fun bike to ride, gonna be fast. I'm probably not gonna ride one until the fall, but in the fall I will ride one. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and like I always say, around up for distance, around down for time. Thanks for watching.